I have this cheesy expression on because YouTube and Facebook opening image capture always choose the crappiest still frame that they can find to try to be the first thing that you see when you go to post a video. My name is Cory Parella. Good evening. I'm here to tell you the story of Just in Time. Now, in order for my book to get made into a film, it takes more than you buying it. So I would be wasting my time by sharing that just with you. It needs to sell 4 million copies in order to get on the list, even the radar of any of the major 7 or 8 major movie studios, and that it would have to have talent get involved and say, hey, all 20 of us want to do this one right here, and you're crazy if you don't finance it. That's when they start to listen. But between now and then, it's just another book that has a gimmick to it. In my case, Just in Time is a story about a guy who's traveling through time by the power of the Holy Spirit, recording history on video for use in the future when the 2 witnesses receive the memory cards from my time traveler and his team to prove historical events the way they really happened to a generation that has lost trust in the printed word. They need video evidence. So they show them this video evidence to be shared among the people truly living in the last month or so before Jesus comes back. I leave that to the indefinite future. It's not next week. It's not this century. I just say at some point it happens. And so I have that going on. Justin is a comedy written to try to reach people who are neither believers nor anti-believers, but people who are right smack dab in the middle going, I'm not sure what I believe, see? And when you're on the fence and you just need to borrow someone else's, I don't want to use the word apologetics, I don't apologize for my faith, but when you're looking for reasons to look into, I think I'm going to explore that, Just in Time is for you. Now, chapter 10 does have a really cool chapter in which the teenage son of my protagonist hero, Justin, is face to face with Jesus, and Jesus looks at him and says, who do you say that I am? And the risen Christ really makes an impression on him. If you have a teenager in your life or any child old enough to read this, and you want them to understand not just attending a church, but why they go beyond social benefits, then I would suggest you get the book for the sole purpose of reading chapter 10. Let them make up their own minds for a while, and I promise you, everything they experience will lead to questions, and every answer to those questions leads them closer to Christ. That's the whole point. So my book is not in lieu of the Bible, it is to support the Bible. So anybody who's like, man, unless it's the Bible, I'm not reading it, get yourself a life. Go see a baseball game. I'm going to tell you the story now of Just in Time. If you were to buy this book, it's big, it's thick, it's got 30 chapters in it, and it took me approximately 5 years to write after I made a short film for a film festival. It was a pro-life nonprofit being sponsored by the church we were attending at the time, and we even won a little award for it, as if anyone cared. It did put me kind of in the path of actor Jim Caviezel and his management team for a while, and it's interesting how the Lord has his way of training people. What I needed to do was sit down and flesh out the story. First was the screenplay. That went through a bunch of hands and wasn't made, and then I sat down and I wrote the novel. I had other ideas I wanted to do, but what the Lord was calling me to do was be a leader in our country. So right now I work in policy, and I've been an educator, a licensed teacher for the last roughly 15 years. That having been said, I'm going to tell you the story of, if it were up to me, I would put $1 billion into the making of Just in Time, and as if I just came back from watching the first screening made by Industrial Light and Magic, this is what they made. First, the acknowledgments in the novel. I talk about what abortion is and what it isn't. I use a different expression than pro-life, pro-choice. I call it voluntary and involuntary miscarriage. Now, we have the technology right now. We don't have to let any babies die when they exit mommy's womb. And when it comes to Republican values, we claim to be the pro-life party. We need to be the party that abides the following. We trust women to choose life. Republicanism is, let the free market take its course, let bad ideas fail, let good ideas be born again. Trusting women to choose life. That should be what we believe. That should be how we behave. We have not adopted that because other leaders have come along and twisted things. So I'm just giving you a heads up. I'm a pro-life guy in a pro-choice world, and as a Republican leader in the state of Colorado, currently running for public office, I'm running for Secretary of State for 2026, I'm standing on that ideologically. I'm not here to convert you, but if you agree or disagree, you're totally allowed. Okay, I'm not here to condemn you. Anybody who says, you're going to hell if you do such and such, you only go to hell when you completely reject the Holy Spirit, and then whoof, no life in you, then you got problems. Okay? Everything else is considered forgivable. That's between you and the Lord. Now, let's talk about the fun of the story. We did have some actors read this thing who loved it. One was Martin Sheen. He came back and said, you know what, I can see what you're doing here. I actually put kind of a caricature of Jed Bartlett from the West Wing with my time traveling guy in the White House, and I thought it would play out funny. And he agreed it was funny, but it certainly wasn't something he was willing to perform in. He went on to win, I believe, 3 or 4 Best Picture ensembles in a row. So you got to give the guy credit for saying no to the right projects and yes to the right projects. The bottom line when it comes to this topic is before the grace of God go I. You let the Lord handle it. This is kind of the Jesus territory. We can take a stance and we can be vocal, but the minute you start trying to coerce free will, you got problems. We have the medical technology to put life first. Okay? Now, the political dynamics are such that your opinion is just as valuable as mine, but make no mistake, I shall be heard. This has become the shame game. The pro-life and the pro-choice movement. And what Just in Time does is it puts some things into context that allows you to feel the empathy of dealing with your relationships, wherever you're coming from. I wanted this to have a lot of energy to it. I wanted the story to be a blend of, reading notes off to the side, James Bond, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Back to the Future, and a few other movies. But I didn't use any of those as a basis. In fact, I was very, very careful not to use H.G. Wells, not to use Back to the Future, not to use Quantum Leap. I mentioned some other time travel movies in jest, but I was very careful to stay away from that because as this story ages, as it gets older in the consciousness of the reader, there's going to be stuff to come and go that you look at the book and go, oh my gosh, that was back in the early 2000s. Oh, that's so long ago. And I don't want to lose my audience that way. There's many ways I could lose my audience. I don't want that to be one of them. So we start off in chapter 1. We are watching the crucifixion. In my mind, we're back at not the Passion of the Christ that Mel Gibson did, but Franco Zeffirelli's Jesus of Nazareth, where you have a British Jesus. Robert Powell was British. He sounds like he's doing Hamlet, doesn't he? The reason I crack up about it is I wanted to stick Justin there. In Jesus of Nazareth, he looks like he's dying from a slight concussion and a nosebleed. In the Passion of the Christ, we watched Jimmy Caviezel receive an enema. Just they ripped the rib cage right out of him. Great effects. Nominated for an Oscar for that. Let's see what else here. Storyline-wise, we're so used to seeing the character front and center at the beginning of everything. Well, what if you had to go back because somebody forgot something? So Justin, he isn't just recording the live crucifixion. Somebody either lost or stole. Turns out it was taken. They didn't know about it. One of the memory cards that was in the video recording device that he is under a cloak and dagger, think Lord of the Rings. And he's recording what's going on, and he's got a recording device that's not only able to capture what's going on in the present, but has a device that can see the spiritual warfare happening around him. Well, the memory card that it's captured on gets misplaced, and they find out there's a separate team that's operating the enemy is doing some things, and they're stealing the memory cards because they're trying to learn how Justin's team is operating, not realizing Jesus is just giving the command. So the opening of the story is this intense, we see the reenactment, we see Jesus give his commander cry, his spirit leaves his body. It's really intense. At one point, I had the music, again, age becomes a factor. You got to be careful with music. Skillet, the band, wrote a song called Hero, in which the chorus of it sings, I need a hero just in time. I thought, yeah, that's my movie. And then I looked at all the other movies that had been done at the time that didn't work or weren't as good. And I looked at how they came across. And even when you got the kid screaming, God's not dead, he's surely alive. And you're like, oh God, did I really wear those pants? Did I really wear my hair like that? And you're cracking up. Like I used to gag on disco footage from American Bandstand and laughed my tail off at the big poofy disco stew hair. I mean, it's funny. I didn't want to get stuck in that, but in my head, you hear dun 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 wah, 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 and you hear the music, and it's like, oh, this is cool. It's cool for about 10 seconds. This stuff gets stale fast in the form of cinema. So as far as the story goes, Justin is watching this, and then as Jesus exits his body, gives up his spirit. That was his primary spiritual gift, other than healing. Some people don't realize that. It was his authority to give up his spirit at a given time. He spent 3 hours in the light, 3 hours in the dark. And as he does that, then he becomes this commander of the army of light, and he goes into hell, and it looks like the Battle of Yavin from episode 4 of Star Wars 1977. Red 5, I'm going in. It's cool! And I thought, what cooler way to start a story? And then Justin has to leap onto the back of one of the angels just to keep up. My mind immediately went to the never-ending story. That's how I started my plot. That's chapter 1. And we meet Rua, his talking Bible. I lovingly call him a cross between Jiminy Cricket and the cape from Doctor Strange. The setting, I wanted to make it clear that we live in a temporary world amidst an eternal civil war. And humanity, all of humanity benefits from Jesus' victory on the cross, which is why he said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. He's being as hands-on as he can there, which I thought was a brilliant line. Like, a child has no idea that they're about ready to walk into traffic. Okay, all they see is, oh, it's cool, zoom, 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 oh, that's good. They have no idea that if they step into that, they will be crushed. All right, that's what Jesus is talking about in that particular moment. Now, chapter 2. It's a very funny book, a lot of irony. Chapter 2. Justin works under the authority of Jesus, and he works with the President of the United States, who was kind of exiting due to an election. He's also a believer, and they have this team that works sort of undercover in the White House as Operation Just in Time. And his primary role is to confirm history, not to make changes. If he makes changes, he needs permission. So the president is trying to relinquish power to a newly elected official who's basically a humanist. He's a non-believer. He believes in the power of man and the will of man and man. He writes off God, and he's going to liquidate Operation Just in Time as soon as he can. The morning briefing among all the time travelers looks straight out of Hill Street Blues. Where it's, okay, everybody come on in, sit down, you got breakfast burritos. There's literally a breakfast in the story. Everybody take, and they're all having their side conversations. Okay, we got a bunch of stuff to do, and he shows this list of tragedies that have happened. And the department is so successful that every other agency is asking for Operation Just in Time to get involved. Well, they need to recruit people. So it's suddenly, who are we going to recruit to join our time travel team? There's about 20 of them, and they need to recruit some more people. Let's see here. Just about then, Justin learns that his teenage daughter has been hit by a bus, and she is in critical care at the hospital. And what makes mommy panic, his wife Sarah, is that she can't jump. She can't. That's what I call it. She can't time jump, and she's really upset and says, "I can't seem to go anywhere that I can normally go, because something's wrong with Sarah and I can't see if she's dead or alive," meaning is her spirit in heaven. They have the authority to stand on the edge of heaven, which is a really cool idea. When Justin goes to ask Jesus what's going on, Jesus looks back at him and says, okay, now she's with me for the moment. Just calm down. I got to ask you something. Why is it your son is a teenager now? He has not yet made a decision about me, meaning, do you accept me as your savior or not? So we get to that part where Jesus starts asking accountability questions. And he says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your son to work with you today. Now, Justin already thinks that he's going to be recruiting a couple of people and he's got interviews to do and he's too busy. No, time to take the boy to work with. Time to take your son to work with you day. Now, as that's happening, one of the missions is to go to a very snooty place where a bunch of snooty filmmakers in Santa Monica and Woodland Hills, California, are about ready to make the worst piece of shit movie in the name of Jesus. They're going to spend a couple of $100 million, and they're going to make a movie so bad it's going to actually repulse people from the box office. But they're a bunch of selfish people, and they're really trying to play to the audiences of, I think I even wrote it down, Santa Monica, West Hollywood, and Venice Beach. It's really what used to be the stereotypically no boundary gay crowd, which has turned into the tranny crowd. You know, born boys want to become girls. They've been picking up rifles lately and doing awful things. For those of you who know recent history, you know what I'm talking about. So in my story, there are a bunch of snooty people who think that they run the world from behind a movie camera and a couple of desks. They're very pretentious, and they want their opinions and their views to be considered more important than yours. After all, they're smarter than you. Yeah. Okay, next. They show them the results of their actions, and then before anybody can get security to get that weirdo out of here, which, hey, weirdos do come to the office now and then, Justin is able to say, okay, you, and you, let's go. And they time travel and take these losers to meet the actual disciples. Some of them fall in love with the gospel right where they are and stay. Some of them come back. And then we learn the boundaries of the time travel unit, meaning we learn the boundaries of what these people can do and what they can't do. We learn how they go into a chamber where they have to de-age. Because at one point, Josiah is there for 10 years, and he starts off, and it's Justin's son, he starts off as a 15-year-old. He's come back, he's 25, he has to de-age. It's pretty cool. In chapter 5, we see the edge of time. We see where heaven meets the portal where hell is. I even had somebody ask me, well, as far as actors go, how young is the youngest person in hell? Right now, I'm going to say I don't have a good answer. I'm guessing we do have kids there as far as we would call minors today. I do believe there are 12, 13, and 14-year-olds. I don't want to sit here and say that, there's no 7-year-olds. They probably exist. Somebody who is self-aware, didn't make up their minds, and you know what? Jesus is merciful. I also have a theory that we don't stay in hell because of our fruit or because of condemnation. When we're in hell, we have the authority to say, Jesus, I believe in you. I call you Lord. And he has the authority to come get us. But I also believe that when you're in the eternal realm, you think, well, things couldn't get any worse. Screw this. I'll just stay as I am. I think that's why guys like Steve Jobs are there, trying to think his way out. Or Hitler's waiting for the next wave of the comeback. I mean, he really thought he had divine appointment to do everything he did. Keep moving here. Chapter 6, we start to see the interviews of people being taken from their native times into our neutral place. I didn't so much borrow from Quantum Leap. We had to stand on the same ground. It's the same general idea. Star Trek even had a thing where they would bring somebody into a certain fiction chamber when the characters would take a vacation, have a fantasy, whatever they call it. I don't care. I'm not a big Star Trek fan, sorry, but I know how successful it is. Do care about you guys. Now, they would have this sort of movie theater screen-esque, kind of like the Purple Rose of Cairo, where they could step in and out of the screen, and they were physically there. And at one point, that's where Jesus meets a character that they're recruiting. Marcus happens to be one of those movie guys that he's an idealist. He's got the right heart, but we're not sure that he's going to be able to really do the job that these time travelers have to do. I mean, they're a special breed when it comes to the heart. And so we take you into this sort of, it's a lobby meets a screening room, a private screening room, in which the screen is interactive, very interactive. And there's funny little moments that happen. And they're able to program it and not beam them in or beam them out, but they literally walk across the stage like it's like the stage is not solid. But we realize later that entire thing is a supernatural fabric that wouldn't exist on Earth otherwise. They take a lot of eyewitness accounts there. And they interview Mary, Jesus' mom. They interview Cornelius, the centurion, the soldier, where in Acts chapter 4, where he met up with Peter and John. In chapter 7, we see Marcus get interviewed, and he gets kind of judged by Jesus, but in a very loving way. And then in chapter 8, we actually hang out with Jesus at the last Passover before he got arrested and things went south for the crucifixion. In chapter 9, Marcus gets tired. They send him home. And what I tried to show there was this is an exhaustive journey. It's really, this one's tough. In chapter 10 again, the teenage Josiah, son of Justin, is asked by Jesus, who do you say that I am, kiddo? I got plans for you. Let's talk. And then in chapter 11, we check in with the two witnesses to see what's going on, and they lay in on Justin and say, hey, I got a deadline here. I need you to go back and get some more missed chapters because the video you sent us is unusable. We need to know what happened here, and here, because we need to show some people that they're asking these questions. So he has to spend an extra time at work. He's feeling tired and burnt out. Jesus is like, hey, you work for me. What's with the burnout, huh? It's a privilege to be who you are, man. You got the coolest job in the world. Not to guilt him, but he reminds him who he works for. And in chapter 12, his wife Sarah works at the local church. She deals with this young, arrogant pastor. How many people have ever dealt with an arrogant pastor? So what I do is he puts his foot in his mouth, and I take him back to the trials that Peter and John had to go through before Caiaphas, when Caiaphas said to them, hey, you stop preaching in his name. And we got to see it unfold. And this arrogant little prick is, I don't want to say humiliated, but he's given a reality check. I'm not going to tell you exactly how he gets out of it, but he winds up in the hospital and they deliver him back to his own time. It's pretty funny stuff. And then we drop ourselves off in chapter 14. Justin meets up with the brand new apostle Saul to be Paul on the road to Emmaus. It's so cool. And in chapters 15 through 20, we basically ride the wave of the rest of the book of Acts, and we hang out and get to know Paul. Paul gets to know the president-elect, and they get to know each other so well, the president-elect realizes, I'm not supposed to be the president. My vice president is supposed to do it, and there's a really sweet ending to that I won't give away. But he discovers why Paul was picked to do what Paul did. It's really sweet. Next, chapters 21 through 25, we kind of tag along with the rest of the book of Acts. And in chapter 26, each agent checks in with the before and after, whatever they were assigned, and we get the loose ends that are tied up there, like Shakespeare would do. In chapter 27, Justin recalls being on board one of the airplanes that crashed into the World Trade Center. And what he's talking about is he's really glad he was able to serve in that way because almost all the people who crashed into that tower went to heaven. That's his comment. And it goes back to a figure of speech that I would use. If you're going to be on a burning plane going into a burning building, did you want to follow that up with a burning hell? You need Jesus. And I know we don't want scare tactics in our movies, but I thought it was a really good metaphor to ask this question. If you knew what was going to happen 5 minutes from now, would you make the same decisions mentally that you're making right now? Would you spend your time the same? And the answer is probably not. But Justin, when he shows intel to somebody, hey, this is you in hell in 10 minutes on video, I've got a recording of it, I'm here to warn you, do people listen? Do they take him seriously? And then the honest answer is in most cases, no. They blow him off and go, well, who are you and that stupid thing? Does this not look like you? I got evidence from your death, dude. Let's talk. And the whole point is to help people who are on the fence because you can't control no. Actually, God respects you when you say no. And he loves you even more when you say yes. Not that he wants you always to say yes. He loves it when we're authentic with him. Next, chapter 28, he attends a parent-teacher conference. He's got to go visit with one of his kids' teachers. Turns out she is a fire-breathing atheist teaching, I think it's either science or biology, I forget what I wrote. And he's got to set her straight in a hilarious way in which he has her go meet Darwin. I just thought it was really funny the way we wrote it. Now, chapter 29, he finally goes home and he's exhausted for the day. He falls into a deep sleep when, guess what? Satan's waiting for him. And there's this really cool sword fight that is a blend of the Sorcerer's Apprentice meets the Last Starfighter. He grabs a hold of this sword, and the sword is literally made of the Word of God. You can see the inscription of the Word in the sword. And Ruah looks at him, and Ruah is the sword of the Spirit. Ruah looks at him and says, hang on, and takes him for this swinging ride in which he's flapping around, but he's winning. He's chopping up demons. It's really cool. But he doesn't necessarily win. They overwhelm him anyway, and he needs to scream the famous lines in the novel, Jesus, save me, and he screams them. And it's really cool, and the way the Lord rescues him is really sweet. He's going to have a fatal heart attack. He wakes up from this. Sarah's there. They pray together. He goes back to sleep, and he realizes, okay, this is ministry. We got to get used to this. And at the very, very end, again, I show the interviews ongoing. They interview some historical characters that you would recognize if you saw them. I stopped writing this in the mid-2000s, so it was before 2010. So my references peak right about that time. In fact, it was, I think, about 6 months after Osama bin Laden had been killed by American forces. And I actually called the dates in some of these things, including when the Cubs were going to win the World Series. I thought that was utterly hilarious that I got it right. So that having been said, that is just in time. I hope it makes you laugh. I hope it reinforces your otherwise understanding of the word. I hope it's fun. And will it get made in my lifetime? Not unless we sell 4 million copies and something else happens that somebody says, oh yeah, let's make this movie next. There were movies that were made for all the wrong reasons, and I have a feeling this is going to be on the back end of all that, where somebody will say, hey, you know what, I read this when I was a kid, and I'm going to make it now because I can. I probably won't be alive when it happens. Tolkien didn't live to see a single frame of Lord of the Rings the way we know it. There was one cheesy cartoon. That was it. So enjoy. I hope this was fun for you to listen to, and I'm going to stop talking. Thanks for listening. Bye.